If there's one thing we know about Hollywood, it's that nothing is sacred. There is no film that cannot be remade. Now, I haven't seen the original Ben-Hur, but I am aware of the impact and influence it's had on the film industry. I mean, we still see a lot of various homages and parodies on television and in other movies. Sadly, though, I think we kind of brought this on ourselves, because if we're willing to pay for a PG-13 version of RoboCop, then it should come as no surprise to us that a studio like MGM thinks it can get away by remaking Ben-Hur. Let's just hope no one suggests remaking things like It's a Wonderful Life, Citizen Kane, or The Godfather, because if that happens, we're in trouble. For those not in the know, the story of Ben-Hur is the story of a Judean prince sent into slavery by the Roman Empire after he's accused of attempting to assassinate Pontius Pilate, the Roman commander best known for sentencing Jesus to the crucifixion. After escaping the ship that he was confined to, he embarks upon a mission of revenge against Messala Severus, his Roman adopted brother, who was now a captain in the Roman army, by defeating him in the chariot races. As such, the story here is very similar to the Count of Monte Cristo, except set during the time of Christ, and it even shares a lot of the same things about how the pursuit of revenge can leave one's life feeling rather hollow. That said, hollow is the word I would use to describe this film. While it does a good job of telling its story and taking the time to develop its characters, it lacks artistic vision. It doesn't really take on a style of its own. It doesn't have anything that really feels unique. I mean, for the most part, it felt like I was watching a TV miniseries, albeit a very high budget one. It's a real shame too, because we have good actors here, and it's clear that the people making this wanted to make a good movie, but really, it just didn't take enough creative risks to actually give it its own unique style. Honestly, it may have been better if they decided to adapt this as a television miniseries, because it feels like there's a lot of pieces missing and a lot of parts of the story that we just never get to see, and this is especially apparent in how the film tries to explain who Jesus is in the context of this story. Now, I appreciate that they didn't make a big deal out of it and didn't devote a whole chunk of the movie to, oh, let's follow Jesus and his story, but at the same time, a lot of the scenes that we see with him suffer from the same problems that a lot of religious movies suffer, where the audience is just expected to automatically know who he is, and they're just like, oh yeah, you know who this is, we don't have to dwell on it, which isn't really good storytelling. Now, out of the 4 scenes that were given, 3 of them only really seem to work in context of the story of Ben-Hur that actually establish, like, okay, well, here's how he's connected to Ben-Hur, here is what he's been doing in Jerusalem. It kind of establishes that historical context, but then they tack on a few extra scenes that are just of moments that, honestly, with the character we're following, we really have no business knowing about, and honestly, if those moments were taken out, probably would have made some of the moments in which Ben-Hur witnesses the crucifixion a lot stronger. As a result, the whole film feels like it's trying to tack on the themes of revenge, forgiveness, and sacrifice on top of what is more or less a sports film. That is the only way I can really describe it. It doesn't integrate those themes into the story properly. Now, aside from what I've mentioned, the film is fairly enjoyable to me as someone who has never seen the original film adaptation of Ben-Hur. They have really good actors, they take their time in developing the characters, and they do a good, decent amount of world building. However, like I also mentioned earlier, it falters because of its lack of artistic vision. It just doesn't take enough creative risks to elevate it above what is more or less a mid-range action movie that happens to have Jesus in it. I mean, the acting is good, it's paced well, and the writing is pretty decent, but visually, there's just nothing here that warrants seeing it in theaters. I mean, it literally is just a mid-range action movie that has Jesus in it and thinks that by having Jesus in it, it is suddenly a much more important, much more significant movie, which just isn't the case. I mean, for a film that's all about spectacle, it's just not that spectacular. If you are curious about this version of Ben-Hur, I'd wait for it to come to Netflix, because the smaller screen should make the shaky cam a lot more palatable, and honestly, it does not mix well with the 3D, so you'll be saving yourself the headache. All of that said, Ben-Hur gets a 3.5 out of 5. So that's it for this episode of Romney's Reviews. Thank you for watching. I'll see you all next time.